Yeah, someone asked a question about decision making. So I put up a tweet recently that said, if you can't decide, the answer is no. And I think that's the reason I have decision making heuristics that I use. And actually, there are 3 decision-making heuristics that I use. And it's very hard to come up with a decision-making heuristic because there's infinite choices we're making all day long. And trying to figure out like some rule that apply to all the choices is really difficult. So obviously, these rules are not going to apply to everything. You have to be intelligent about when to use them and when not to use them. But I'll tell you my 3 decision-making heuristics. First is, if I'm faced with a difficult choice, such as should I marry this person? Should I take this job? Should I buy this house? Should I move to this city? Should I go in business with this person? If you cannot decide, the answer is no. And the reason is because modern society is full of options. There are tons and tons of options. We live in a planet of 7 billion people. We are connected to everybody on the internet. There's hundreds of thousands of careers available to you. There are so many choices. You're biologically not built to realize how many choices there are, because we evolved in tribes of 150 people, where if you pass up one choice, the second thing never comes along. Also, when you choose something, you get locked in for a long time. If you start a business, that's 10 years. You get into a relationship, that's 5 years, maybe more. You move to a city, that's 10, 20 years. So these are very, very long-lived decisions. So it's very, very important that you only say yes when you are pretty certain. You're never going to be absolutely certain, but you're going to be very positive. If you find yourself creating a spreadsheet for a decision with a list of yeses and nos and pros and cons and checks and balances and why this is good or why that's bad, forget it. You have to internalize it in your gut and in your heart, and you have to really want something before you go for it. So my first decision-making heuristic is, if you cannot decide, the answer is no. The second decision-making heuristic that I use is, if you have 2 choices to make, such as, do I tell this person A or do I tell them B, or do I take job A or job B, or do I make this sacrifice now or do I go ahead and do what I want, whatever it is. If you have 2 choices and they're relatively equal choices, like it looks 50-50 to you, this is key. For choices where it's lopsided, 175, the other one's 25, obviously go with the 75. But if it looks equal to you, A or B, and you can't decide, take the path that is more difficult and more painful in the short term. Because what's actually going on is one of these paths requires short-term pain, and the other one maybe requires pain further out in the future. And what your brain is doing through conflict avoidance is it's trying to push off the short-term pain. And by definition, if the 2 are even and one has short-term pain, that means it has long-term gain. And by the law of compound interest, the long-term gain is where you want to go towards anyway. So your brain is overvaluing the side that has the short-term happiness and is trying to avoid the one with short-term pain. So you have to cancel that tendency out, and it's a powerful subconscious tendency by leaning into the pain. As most of you know, most of the gains in life come from suffering in the short term so you can get paid in the long term. Working out, like for me, is not fun. I suffer in the short term, I feel that pain, but then in the long term, I'm better off because I have muscles or I'm healthier. The same way, if I am reading a book and I'm getting confused, if I can't understand what's going on, that's just like working out and the muscle getting sore or tired or feeling the lactic acid. But it's not just my brain is being overwhelmed, but in the long run, I'm getting smarter because I'm absorbing new concepts or at the limit or edge of my capability. So you generally want to lean into things that have short-term pain but have long-term gain. My trainer, Jerzy Gregorek, aka the creator of the Happy Body, he has a beautiful short saying where he says, hard choices, easy life, easy choices, hard life. So what he means by that is, if you make the hard choices in the short term, like, oh, I shouldn't eat bad carbs or processed foods, or I should go ahead and do the workout, which is difficult, and I don't feel like doing it, then in the long term, I'm going to have an easy life. But if I make the easy choices in the short term, like I'm going to stay out drinking, I'm going to go party, I'm not going to do my work right now, I'm not going to meditate, whatever it is, then in the long term, you're going to have a very difficult life. You will not have built up that self-discipline. So that is my second heuristic for decision making. And now I'm going to talk about the third heuristic for decision making. The third one is a little different. The first one was focused on making the right long-term decision. The second one was on choosing how to split between two otherwise even paths. The third one is about cultivating peace of mind. And peace of mind is very important because it is the precursor to happiness. Happiness is one of those things that cannot be chased directly. If you chase happiness directly, what you're actually chasing is pleasure, and pleasure eventually comes with a withdrawal symptom. Like pleasure is a high, and then you crash down. Pleasure is a Ferris wheel that you get on, you ride it up, and then eventually you ride it back down. But if you actually want to be happy, if you want to be content, that comes from peace. And so the third decision-making heuristic is, if you're having, this is very helpful in times of interpersonal conflict, where you're trying to figure out whether to say something to somebody or not, that might make them angry or might get something off your chest. Make the choice that will leave you more equanimous. Equanimous is sort of a fancy word for internally calm and settled. Make the choice that will leave you more equanimous in the long term. And this one I can't take credit for. I got it from Kapil Gupta. He's on Twitter as well as Kapil Gupta MD, or Siddha Performance. I forget which account he's using right now. But basically, whichever choice will leave you calmer in the long term is actually the right one. If you walk away from making a choice and you still have internal turmoil, then eventually you're going to want to turn around and reverse that choice. So this helps you from having regrets. So those are kind of my three decision-making heuristics.